For over a year, I begged my wife to see me. When I finally stopped, she couldn't look away. This isn't a revenge story, it's what happens when love dies quietly. Hey everyone, appreciate you being here. Thanks for taking the time to read this. I've got something new to share with you today, and I won't lie, it's a tough one. So here goes. The low, steady buzz of the overhead fluorescent lights in my small Nashville office, where I've worked as an electrical inspector for years, has become the loudest thing in my world lately. My name's Ethan. I'm 39, and for close to 10 years this job has been my anchor, the one thing that hasn't changed. 12 years back I married Sarah. For a long while I really believed that was it for me, my dream, the whole package. We built a quiet life, a son in 5th grade, a daughter who just started middle school, and a humble little 3-bedroom place just outside the city. Nothing extravagant, but it was ours. And to me that meant everything. I wasn't chasing anything flashy, I just wanted a steady home. A partner I could count on. A love that felt like the early days, back when we had nothing but still looked at each other like we were the luckiest people alive. Sarah used to be that person for me. She was light-hearted, warm, always playful. She had this way of pulling me into her world. When I'd come home, she'd leap onto my back like a teenager, or drag me into the shower out of nowhere, just because she wanted to be close. She left these funny little sticky notes in my lunch, stuff like, "Don't forget you're hot," or "Can't wait to kiss you later." I didn't just smile at those notes, I needed them. I kept one in my wallet until it literally disintegrated from how many times I opened it just to read her words again. She used to say she loved how worn out I looked after work. She'd tug on my shirt and tease, "You're all sweaty and manly," like it was a compliment. And back then I didn't have to do much to feel wanted. I just had to be there. She was all in. But that version of Sarah, she's been gone for a while now. I can't say exactly when things started to shift. It didn't happen overnight. It was more like the volume on a song you love being slowly dialed down until it's barely a whisper in the background. I thought maybe life was just getting to us, jobs, kids, the daily grind. But then the weeks turned into months, and I felt it more and more. I'd try to reach out to her, literally, and she'd pull away. I'd wrap my arms around her in bed and she'd roll to the other side. I'd come up behind her while she folded laundry and kiss her neck, and she'd go stiff like I'd startled her. I'd crack a joke about sneaking away for a date night, and she'd sigh or roll her eyes like I was some kind of nuisance. Look, I'm not the guy who begs to be noticed. I'm not flashy. I'm consistent. I do my part. I provide. I fix the sink when it leaks, I pay the electric bill on time, and I'm home every night for dinner. I've never laid a hand on her, never stepped out on our marriage, never even raised my voice in a way that would make her feel unsafe. But after a while, every single attempt I made to connect, whether it was a touch, a kiss, or just talking, felt like I was standing in front of a locked door, knocking over and over, hoping it would open. Most nights I'd just lie there, staring up at the ceiling, wondering how we got here. She'd brush me off with, "I'm just not in the mood lately," or, "You always want something," or the one I started to hate the most, "I'm touched out from the kids." And then, "It's not all about sex, Ethan." I heard them all. And trust me, I know it's not just about the physical stuff. I understand that motherhood is draining in ways I'll never fully grasp. But this, what we were living through, this wasn't exhaustion. This wasn't someone overwhelmed and needing rest. This felt intentional. Like she had made a decision to shut herself off from me. To close every door that once felt open. And every night she turned away from me, it didn't just feel like rejection. It felt like I was being treated like some creep who couldn't take a hint, instead of the man who'd stood by her side for over a decade. The guy who built this entire life with her, piece by piece. Eventually, it got to the point where I stopped trying, because trying made me feel humiliated. Imagine that. A grown man married to the love of his life in his own house, feeling ashamed just to reach out and touch his wife's arm. I'd place a hand on her shoulder and wait for it, that tiny sigh. Not one of affection but one of irritation. Like I'd just added another task to her to-do list. Sometimes I'd lean in for a kiss and she'd turn her head, offering me her cheek without even blinking. Like I was a coworker or something. Once I thought maybe I'd break the ice a little. I made her breakfast one morning and left a note next to the plate that said, "Miss this?" Her response? "Don't guilt me into anything, Ethan." That one hit like a punch. Because I wasn't trying to guilt her. I wasn't trying to score points or set a trap. I just missed her. I missed feeling like someone wanted me. And the truth was, I hadn't felt wanted in so long, I forgot what it was even like. Little by little, I started shutting down without even meaning to. I stopped cracking jokes at dinner. I stopped reaching for her waist when we passed each other in the hallway. I didn't bring up date nights anymore, because I already knew how that conversation would end. The thing about rejection is, it doesn't just hurt, it chips away at your sense of self. It makes you feel invisible, like you're shrinking inside your own life. On the outside, I was still showing up. Still fixing panels, passing inspections, laughing with coworkers. But inside, I was fading. Becoming a ghost of the man I used to be. And the worst part? I couldn't talk to anyone. Try saying this stuff out loud to another guy. My wife hasn't touched me in 6 months. You get one of two things: awkward silence or some joke about pitching a tent in the garage. No one really knows what to do with a man who feels emotionally starved. And when I brought it up to her, it was like walking into a wall. She'd snap, "Is that all I am to you?" Or, "Why are you making this about sex again?" And then came the deflection, "You don't get what I deal with." Maybe she was right. Maybe I didn't fully understand everything she was carrying: work stress, being a mom, her own body changing with age. But what I did know, what I couldn't ignore, was the feeling of lying beside someone you love and feeling like you were a million miles away. And then came the thing that gutted me the most: watching her light up more for her phone than for me. Coming home started to feel less like coming back to my family and more like walking into a place where I wasn't really wanted. Like I was just in the way. Over time, something inside me began to crack. Not all at once, not in some loud, dramatic breakdown. It was more like a slow leak, like a faucet that drips and drips until one day the whole sink spills over and you don't even know when it started. I started questioning everything: our marriage, my worth, even who I was. Was I not good looking anymore? Had I become too routine, too safe? Just boring? That kind of thinking, it gets into your bones. It doesn't just make you doubt your relationship, it makes you doubt yourself. And that path is dangerous. It makes you smaller, makes you retreat in ways that aren't obvious until it's too late. I stopped kissing her goodbye in the mornings. Quit sending her those little texts at lunchtime just to say hi. I stopped asking if she wanted to watch something together after the kids went to bed. I was still there, but I was hollow. Just going through the motions. And the worst part, the part that hit me like a gut punch, was that she didn't even notice I had stopped trying. Not a word. Not a look. Nothing. And that's when it truly landed. If she didn't care when I was putting in effort, there was no chance she'd care when I stopped. What I didn't realize back then was that this slow unraveling, this quiet pulling away, was setting up something she never saw coming. Me finally choosing to say no. No more favors without thanks. No more jumping to meet every request. No more letting myself be treated like I was just some tool she only reached for when something needed fixing. It wasn't some explosive moment. There was no shouting match, no tears, no dramatic, "I'm done." It was way more subtle than that. Just a quiet, still decision I made on a random Tuesday morning while brushing my teeth. I looked up at myself in the mirror, eyes tired, shoulders slouched, face worn down, and thought, I don't even recognize this guy anymore. And worse, I didn't like who I was becoming. I used to be the man who grinned walking through the front door, who tucked love notes into his wife's purse, who planned date nights just to surprise her, who'd wrap his arms around her while she stirred the pot just to hear her laugh. That guy, he was long gone. Now I just felt like help. Like a babysitter who doubled as an ATM. I wasn't a partner, I was a resource. And in that moment, I decided something had to change. I wasn't going to keep fighting for someone who wasn't even in the ring with me. I wasn't going to keep begging to be touched, noticed, or loved. I was done asking. Done trying to prove I was worth the effort. That first day, it wasn't like the world shifted. Nothing grand happened. I still got up, brewed the coffee, packed the kids' lunches, drove to work like always. But when I came home that evening and Sarah looked up and asked if I could take a look at the dryer because it was making that weird noise again, I didn't jump. I looked her in the eye and said, "Not today. I've got things to do." That's all I said, no bitterness in my voice, no sarcasm in my tone. Just a simple line drawn in the sand. A boundary. She blinked at me, confused, almost like she didn't understand what was happening. Then, without saying much, she just turned and walked away. The next morning, she poked her head into the bathroom while I was shaving and asked if I could drop the kids off at school. She had an early Zoom meeting and needed the extra time. "I can't," I told her, looking at my reflection. "Already told my boss I'd be in early." I watched her face carefully then. She looked stunned, like it had never even crossed her mind that I might say no. And that's when it really hit me. She wasn't reacting to just this one moment, she was seeing something new. Someone new. A man who wasn't angry or cruel, just emotionally checked out. Just like she had been with me for months. And as strange as it sounds, once I stopped chasing her, stopped trying to force my presence back into her world, I started to feel better. My sleep improved. I wasn't dragging myself through the days anymore. My appetite came back. I started running again in the mornings, getting outside before the sun came up. At night, I'd lift weights in the garage, not pushing myself too hard, just enough to clear my head. To remind myself that my body, my energy, it could still be mine. Not given out on demand. And little by little, my silence began to say more than any argument ever could. She picked up on it in small moments. I didn't ask if she wanted to watch something after dinner. I stopped rubbing her back when she climbed into bed. No more late-night tea when she worked overtime. I'd come home, eat, shower, and head straight to the garage. I'd sit out there for hours, listening to old playlists, scrolling through tool sites, anything to occupy the space where her warmth used to be. No arguments. No conversations. Just distance. One night around 10, she wandered into the garage holding 2 mugs of tea. She smiled a little and said, "You disappeared again," like she was trying to be light about it. I leaned back in my chair, looked at her for a moment and calmly said, "Just needed some air." She lingered, expecting something, maybe a smile, an apology, some old flicker of guilt from the man I used to be. But I didn't offer anything. I just nodded and turned my eyes back to my phone. A few seconds later, she turned around and walked back inside without saying another word. That moment must have unsettled her, because after that, I noticed her behavior shifting. But not in the way I hoped. It wasn't reconnection. It was desperation, cloaked in chores and errands. Suddenly she became clingy, but in a transactional way. Every conversation circled around what she needed from me. The AC's acting up again. Can you take a look? I'm slammed. Can you do the Costco run? The trash guy skipped us. Can you call the city? And my answer? You can call them. You've got a car. You've got 2 hands. Again, I wasn't yelling. I wasn't being sarcastic. I wasn't even angry. I was just done. I was a calm, distant man who had been emptied out over the course of a year, drained by indifference, by rejection, by silence, and who had nothing left to give. And then came the awkward dinners. She started making small talk again, trying to bring up things like work or the kids' school projects, like we were 2 friends catching up after a long time. I responded when she spoke, short answers, polite enough, but there was no spark. No warmth. I didn't lean in or laugh the way I used to. I was physically at the table, sure, but emotionally? I was 1,000 miles away. Exactly the way she had been with me for what felt like forever. Then came the subtle shifts. She started wearing nicer clothes around the house. Real outfits instead of oversized tees. I caught the scent of perfume again, the one she used to wear when she still wanted me to notice. Her phone, always face down before, now sat face up, like she was making some silent statement. See? I'm not hiding anything. But I didn't ask. I didn't bite. Because by then I had crossed some invisible line. I wasn't curious. I wasn't hurt. I just didn't care anymore. There's this point a man hits, after enduring rejection, being shut out night after night, feeling humiliated for wanting the person he vowed his life to, where something inside shifts. And you stop hoping. You stop waiting for things to feel like they used to. You stop trying to bring back what's already gone. You realize you've got 2 choices. Keep chasing someone who's not looking back, or finally turn inward and take care of the one person you still can show up for, yourself. So that's what I did. I started showing up for me. I poured into myself the way I used to pour into her. No more extra chores just to earn some scrap of affection. No more trying to get it right so she wouldn't sigh and roll her eyes. No more tiptoeing around her moods. If something broke in the house, she could Google how to fix it. If the dog was sick, she could make the vet appointment. I wasn't her handyman anymore. I wasn't her emotional safety net or the quiet guy in the background who always said yes just to keep the peace. And the more I pulled away, the more it seemed to rattle her. She started asking questions. Is everything okay? Can we talk soon? I'd shrug, sure. Or, maybe. One night she asked if I wanted to go out to dinner, just the 2 of us. I didn't even have to lie. I've got plans that night, I said. And I did. Plans to sit by myself, eat a plate of wings and watch football on a bar TV in blissful silence. And you know what? That felt better than any forced dinner conversation ever could. Then came the night everything snapped. I was in bed, scrolling my phone, winding down like I always did. She walked in wearing that old black lingerie set, the one she hadn't touched in over a year. The same one she used to wear back when she actually wanted to be close. She stood there, silent for a second, then said softly, "I feel like we've been off lately. Can we fix this?" I didn't even look up right away. I just stared at my screen for a moment, then slowly set the phone down. When I finally met her eyes, I felt it, something I hadn't felt in a long time. No anger. No heartbreak. No frustration. Just, done. You turned me down every single time I reached out, I said quietly. Every time I needed you, you made me feel like I wasn't worth the space I took up. And now that you need me, I've got nothing left to give. She stood there caught off guard. Her expression flickered between shock, hurt, and something close to anger. So this is payback? She asked. You're punishing me? I shook my head slowly. No, I said. I'm protecting myself. And right then I saw it in her eyes, something shift. She realized this wasn't a tantrum. It wasn't some cold attempt to get even. This wasn't revenge. It was consequence. I didn't pack a bag that night. I didn't tell her to leave. But deep down I knew something had ended. Some essential part of me, the part that used to chase her, that used to bend over backwards just for a moment of her time, that used to break itself down just to be held, was gone. He wasn't coming back. Now she was standing in the silence she had built. It's strange the way the house still hums with life. The TV still plays in the background. The fridge kicks on. The kids laugh like they always did. But underneath all that, there's a quiet that wasn't there before. A silence that isn't about noise, it's about space. Distance. That heavy kind of silence that forms when one person finally stops trying to close the gap. And that person was me. I didn't walk out. I didn't betray her. I didn't scream or throw words like knives. I just stopped offering what had been taken for granted for far too long. I stopped pouring into a cup that never poured back. Now, the same woman who used to roll away from me at night reaches for me under the covers and I stay still. The same hands that used to gently push mine aside now tug softly at my sleeve when I walk past her in the hallway, and I don't stop walking. What's ironic is, none of this was part of some grand plan. I didn't sit down one day and plot out how to emotionally shut her out. I didn't script this to make her pay. I just got tired. Tired of reaching and not being reached for. Tired of carrying the emotional weight of two people. Tired of always being the one to start the conversation, to break the silence, to ask for connection, to offer forgiveness. I gave everything I had until there was nothing left. And when I finally accepted that my well was dry, I didn't make a scene. I just stepped away inside myself. Even though I was still sleeping in the same bed, still making coffee in the same kitchen, still driving the same commute, I was already gone. And she felt it almost immediately. Because women, they always notice the silence. They may ignore the effort while it's there, but the absence of it? That they feel in their bones. At first she tried to test it. She started testing the waters, little gestures at first. Asked if I wanted to watch a movie together one night. I shook my head. Not really. Another evening she said she'd make something special for dinner. I told her I'd already eaten. One afternoon in the car, she reached over to hold my hand at a red light. I moved mine to the gear shift. It wasn't spite. It wasn't payback. It was just the truth, plain and simple. When someone dismisses your presence long enough, it rewires something in you. Eventually you start treating them like they're no longer part of your world, because in your heart they're not. This shift wasn't just something I felt, it started to show. I began shaving more often, stopped wearing the same worn-out shirts, hit the gym more consistently. I didn't do it for attention. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I just wanted to feel like a man again. Like me again. On the weekends I started taking off, solo drives out to the lake, just me, a six-pack, a fishing rod, and the kind of quiet that didn't hurt. I wasn't escaping her. I was returning to myself. And the more I did, the more confused she became. She started with the questions. Where are you going? Why are you acting so different? Are you seeing someone? I gave her nothing. A shrug. A quiet, just out. Or when I felt especially detached, I'd just say, don't worry about it. Funny how the same woman who used to pass me in the hallway like I didn't exist suddenly couldn't stop watching me. She started texting again during the day. Hope your day's going okay. Miss you. Been thinking about us a lot lately. I never wrote back. Not out of cruelty. But because I'd already had all those thoughts, months ago, while lying awake next to her trying to figure out why I felt so invisible. Why every attempt at connection felt like a mistake. A man can only lie there in silence for so long before he finally gets up and walks. Not always with his feet, but with his heart. Then came the night it all came to a head. It was a Thursday. The kids were tucked in, fast asleep. I was at the kitchen table going over some late paperwork from a rewiring job I'd finished earlier that week. She sat across from me, quiet at first. I didn't look up. Then she spoke. I know I've been distant, she said. And I've been trying. But you've just been cold. Still I didn't raise my eyes. Just replied, I know. She sat for a beat, then said softly, I miss us. I miss how we used to be. I don't know what happened, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. But I want to fix it. I finally put my pen down and looked her in the eyes. And for the first time in a very long while, there was no heat in my chest. No knot in my stomach. No tears burning at the corners of my eyes. I was just done. Now you want to fix it? I asked quietly. Because now you feel what I've been drowning in for over a year? Her expression broke, shock first, then a slow slide into something sadder. I kept going. I begged you, Sarah. I begged for your touch. For even the smallest sign that you still saw me, not just physically but as your husband, your partner, your person. I reached out for you every night. And every night you rolled away. I paused, watching her mouth open slightly, then close again. I asked you what was wrong. You said nothing. I offered everything I had, emotionally, mentally, physically. And all it ever seemed to get me was the feeling that I was too much. Too needy. Too soft. Like I was some kind of weight you had to carry. She didn't say anything. Just sat there still. Breathing quietly. Taking it in. I leaned back in my chair and finished the thought that had been building in me for months. And now that I've stopped asking, now that I don't need you, you suddenly want me again. But it was never just about the sex, Sarah. You didn't just turn down my body. You turned down me. You rejected me. And that I can't unfeel. Her eyes welled up. She reached for words but only managed to whisper, I'm sorry. I nodded. Yeah, me too. We didn't talk for the rest of the night. In the weeks that followed, she kept trying. She'd wake up early, pack a lunch for me like she used to. Started putting real effort into how she looked, smiling more, sitting closer on the couch. At work, she'd text me little things, flirty messages, sweet memories. But it was too late. The fire had already burned out. There weren't even embers left, just cold ash. And the thing about men like me, steady, loyal, quiet, is that we give you everything up front. Our effort, our heart, our presence. But once we feel ourselves slip beyond that invisible line, once we shut down emotionally, we don't come back. I started spending more time away from home. Taking long walks after dinner. Hitting the gym late. Getting in the car and just driving, nowhere in particular, just somewhere else. Anywhere that felt a little lighter. Eventually, I began sleeping on the couch, not out of resentment, not to punish her. Just because I felt more at ease there. I needed the space. The peace. One night, she sat on the edge of the bed, her voice trembling. Can you hold me? She asked. I miss feeling safe in your arms. I looked up at her for a long moment. And then I said, you didn't care when I needed to feel wanted. Why should I pretend now? I asked her that question without raising my voice, without bitterness in my tone. Just a simple truth laid bare. And she didn't answer, because she knew. She knew what she had withheld from me all those months. Affection. Presence. Respect. A sense of matching. And now I was the one withholding, not out of spite or malice, but because I simply wasn't available anymore. Not to a relationship where love only showed up after absence. Where care only came once I stopped asking for it. Where I was only seen when I was no longer right in front of her. Eventually, I filed for legal separation. I told her we needed space, time apart. But if I'm being honest, I already knew the truth. I needed out. I wasn't looking for drama. I didn't want to hurt her. I wasn't chasing some twisted version of revenge. I just wanted what she never gave me in the end. Now, I live in a small rental house just past the edge of town. There's nothing extravagant. No granite countertops or smart home gadgets. But it's clean. It's calm. It's mine. The kids come over on weekends. We fish down at the lake. We grill burgers in the backyard. Watch old movies with popcorn and soda. And they see something in me now they hadn't in a while. A real smile. Not the fake kind. Not the one you put on so the house doesn't crack. But something real. Quiet. Full. Sarah still calls from time to time. Still sends those texts. Can we talk? Can I see you? I'm not the same woman anymore. And maybe that's true. Maybe she's changed. But here's what I know for sure. I'm not the same man either. The man who once longed for her to see him, the one who bent over backwards trying to be enough for her, he's gone. And in his place is a man who lives by one simple rule. If you didn't care when I needed you most, don't expect me to care now that you finally realize it. She turned her back when love was freely offered. So I turned away when it was suddenly begged for. That's not cruelty. That's balance. Dear listeners, thank you for staying with me through this. If this resonated with you, please drop your thoughts in the comments below. Share your stories. Let's talk about it. And as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.